this summer we've had really hot, sunny, dry conditions, and 1 or 2 plants have done really well, and I think I'm going to grow a lot more of them. Now 3 of them in particular, and number 1 is my Plumbago. This is Plumbago auriculata crystal waters, and it's this fabulous bright blue colour, much brighter, stronger blue than the ordinary Plumbago auriculata, which I've got growing elsewhere, which has a much paler blue flower. Now, the reason I am more pleasantly surprised about this plant is because I find it's much hardier than people say. This one here, by my kitchen door, has lived outside for 3 years. Okay, it's a sheltered microclimate, but it is outside. But I've also had it outside in slightly more exposed conditions, and it still survived. It dies right back, but then and it keeps the twiggy structure, but then they reshoot again the following year. So its common name is the Cape Leadwort, and that reason for that is because the lead is from plumbago. The Latin for lead is plumbium, and what it is it's actually used for detoxifying lead, which I had not realised. So it's an interesting plant. Now, it's a scrambler. As you can see, it's just scrambling up my scroll that I've got here by the back door. So that means it's a sort of loose climber. I've tied it into the arch, and I'm going to train it over a bit more because it will grow up to 4 metres. So if I give it lots of food and water, it will do really well. Having said that, I've got 2 plumbagos out on my north terrace in little pots, which I've grown on tripods, which I hardly ever feed, and I water maybe once a week with a quick splash, and they seem to thrive on neglect. So that's another reason I really like it. Whatever you do to it, it seems to produce the goods, and they're easy to clip. I mean, this is getting a little bit vigorous, but I can just cut off shoots, and then it will just put the growth where I want it. Oh, there's another long shoot that I can train up here along the wire, which is really nice. And what I'll do with these little shoots that come off is I'll just cut off the flower bud like that, and then I can make nice cutting material of these. So I just cut below a leaf node all the way down the stem, and then I'll pop them in my propagator, and they will probably root in about 4 weeks, something like that. They're very, very easy. Mary Berry came to lunch the other day. She bid for having lunch here in an auction, and she came to see the garden, and her friends just went mad about this plumbago. So they took home some cuttings, but I'm going to just take some extra cuttings just in case theirs didn't work after the long car journey, and then I'll have some to give them. And it's a great plant to give away because not many people realise how good it is, how easy it is, and how hardy it is. So I think it's going to be grown in this country a lot more in the future. And so there we are. There's the lovely Cape Leadwort. That's number 1 of my plants. Now in this area here by my kitchen, I've got all my favourites running down by my south wall. So I've got my citrus, I've got a lovely jasmine, I've got my standard lilac, I've got some figs. I thought I'd just mention these in passing because I've also got this fabulous curry plant, which I love, and I use the leaves in curries, and it was given to me by a lovely Indian client, Kishore, who sadly died a couple of weeks ago. But this is another plant which people say is difficult to grow, but it loves the hot summers. I'll put it in the greenhouse, a cold greenhouse, over winter to protect it, but sometimes I actually leave it out here and then I just bring it under cover if it looks like a really hard frost, and it seems to tolerate that really well. And then I've also got my leatherleaf fern, which is a brilliant fern for flower arranging. Again, slightly hardy, so it can just go back under the cover if it threatens hard frost. But these leaves will live in water for 2 weeks at least. You know, that's why it's called the leather leaf fern. What I forgot to mention about the plumbago is that if you do bring it into a cold greenhouse in the winter, then obviously it will go into growth much earlier and it will start flowering around June the following summer. Whereas if I leave it outside, it gets into growth much later and it won't start flowering till July or so. But then it will go on pushing out the flowers right until December or so. It's often been flowering sporadically, not massively like this, on Christmas Day. So that's another reason to have a treasure like this, somewhere you really, really appreciate it. Now come and have a look at my second best plant. My second best plant is Sessile gummiferum, and here it is now. Now it's coming to the end of its flowering. It's been looking really good for the last 3 months, so it has a really long flowering time. So really June, July, August, it's been looking a stunner. Now I don't know why this plant isn't better grown. It loves hot, sunny, dry conditions. So in the gravel, it is obviously a perfect place for it. Now the foliage, which is looking a bit past its best now, is this lovely sort of grey-blue lacy foliage. And then it produces these massive, massive umbels of cow parsley-like flowers, which start off sort of white and then they go sort of pinkish. Now this is monocarpic, and a monocarpic plant is a plant that goes up to flower, and then after it flowers, it dies. So this is its last year of this particular plant, but as you can see, we are going to get thousands and thousands of seeds. And that is the simplest way to propagate it. So I will then take these seeds when they form and ripen. I will actually probably put them in vermiculite, some damp vermiculite, in a polythene bag. I'll keep them in sort of ordinary room conditions or outside conditions for about 4 weeks. And then I'm going to put them somewhere cooler, like in the fridge, for 8 weeks, still in the damp vermiculite in a bag. And then I'm going to sow them, and I'm going to sow them when they are fresh. So that is the key to successful germination of this plant, is to sow it when it's fresh. So if you get the seed, buy it sort of late summer, autumn, fresh that year's seed, treat it as I've said, and then you'll find that the germination rate is very good. Now, I suppose one thing about this plant is it does take 2 or 3 years before it flowers, but you do then have the nice lacy foliage, which is obviously much more compact when it's not flowering. So you have the lovely lacy foliage for a couple of years, and then bang, it goes mad, produces these wonderful flowers. So when I get the seeds and they all germinate, I will plant out quite a few, and I will do that over a few years so that I have a succession of plants always in flower. But I think in our current hot, arid conditions, this plant should be much, much better known because it is just a stunner. The other thing about this plant is it's a great cut flower. It lasts for weeks in water. This rose has done so well this summer. This is bred by my uncle David Austin, and it's called Windflower, and he reckons it was his favourite rose that he bred. And I just think it's just done so beautifully. It's flowered literally non-stop since about June, with just continual blooms. And we're now in mid-August, so it should have an even bigger flowering come September, early September, when they normally have their second flush. But this just flowers continually. Now, one of its parents, it's an Alba hybrid, and the Alba roses are very naturalistic, and they date back to the Middle Ages. And that's one reason I think that I love this rose. It's got this lovely matte green foliage, it's got a lovely bushy, quite natural habit, and its flowers are a bit like an anemone, a windflower, which is the windflower is a common name for anemone, hence the reason that David gave the rose the name Windflower. And you can see it's a semi-double, and you can see its beautiful yellow, golden yellow stamens in the centre. It has a lovely fragrance, a sweet fragrance. It's not a massively strong fragrance, but it is definitely there. And it's a sort of cinnamon crossed with apple type fragrance. So because it's got Alba in its parentage, that makes it so vigorous, that makes it so strong, that makes it so natural looking. So it's a perfect rose really to have the middle or the back of the border, or this on the edge of my rose meadow. I've got a lot of them running down through here, and because they look more naturalistic, I think they're great in the sort of meadow type situation. they can also be used as a hedge. So if I planted them in a line, they would form a brilliant natural looking rose hedge. Because they are so big, you might need, if you're on very rich soil, just to put a sort of post and wire line through them just to tie them in a bit. But on my sort of soil, I wouldn't think that's necessary. So it's disease resistant, is excellent. I think I'm going to take some cuttings now to make even more, even though I've probably got, what, 8, 10 of them. And I planted these a few years ago, so that's why they are looking nice and well established. Far more established, obviously, than the roses in the rest of my rose meadow, which I planted from cuttings just last autumn or so. Anyway, so there's the brilliant Rosa Windflower with its beautiful pinkish, almost lilac colour, fragrant blooms that look really naturalistic, dainty, and really will add to many different garden situations.